To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us. J. May, I can't thank you enough, bro. It's great to see your smile, feel your energy for coming on. This has been a long time coming to have this conversation or sharing this conversation with many, as we do this so often. And before we jump into the meat of it, I always start off with asking, when you hear culture, what does that mean to you?
When I hear culture, I hear culture as a proxy for nationality within the Black race in North America, specifically the United States. Culture is important to us because we have yet to examine the depth of what it means to be able to have a nationality. Like if you talk to any person born in the United States, Black person, there's a conversation around where is our true origin? Where do we derive our true understanding of self?
Yep.
And a lot of it comes with nationality. So I think culture, for us in my community specifically, the way we define it, is that it's all encompassing. It's our behaviors, our attitudes, our understanding, our rituals, our habits, our beliefs. More importantly, the thing that we claim is the function of our nationality or identity or our tribe. So it's much deeper than just doing it for the culture. Like I think that phrase is OU. I think it's us doing it to validate our contributions, societal.
Love it. So obviously, I know a ton about you, and before we get into it, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself for those who aren't familiar. A little bit of your journey, where you're from, what you're about.
Cool. Originally from the south side of Chicago, a neighborhood called Roseland, aka Wild Wild Hundreds. Lived all over the city. Grew up wanting to be Dr. Lucius Fox, the guy who made Gaddis the Batman. At the age of 7 years old, I was sick. I had what's called septicemia, which is a severe blood infection that almost took my life. And when you have a temporal understanding of time, meaning that, time isn't promised and it's fleeting, you start to orient yourself differently within the world. So from 7 years old, after being exposed to that comic book, until now, I've been in this pursuit of using my gifts and talents to push humanity forward. So I've done everything from being Nike's first Black industrial designer intern at the age of 19, roughly 20, in the early 2000s, growing and scaling Jordan brand from a shoe to an actual global phenomenon, helping to work on a chill bag, digital technology, and this notion of quantified self. I've taught at Stanford. I went to Stanford for grad school, went to design school in Detroit for undergrad, worked in venture capital, started a few companies, led a few movements, took a bunch of L's, but I'm still here and I'm blessed. But more importantly, I think what I want people to know about me is that I look at creativity as altruistic rebellion. And it's been a way that I've been able to step into the world and contrast the narratives that I don't think are feeding or nurturing the minds of our young people, because I believe my mission is to build stronger children instead of fixing broken adults. And the greatest job I'll ever have will be the steward of my progeny, meaning my children and my descendants that come from them. And I also, serving my wife and being able to be there for her, through understanding and peace and patience. And so all the career stuff is cool, but I'm more focused on being an uncommon man and being someone that has done something with their lives that truly reflects the point of it all, which I think is to, give and receive love. So that's a little bit about who I am.
No, I love it. And obviously you do such a great job of describing you. And I love that you ended where you did, because I know that to be so true for you, about your pouring into not only your family, but the pouring into many, many others. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with you over the past, 10 to 15 years. And I'm always blown away at times of your level of evolution. So I talk about the culture of evolution, which I think you represent in everything that you embody. And you've done and contributed a great deal to the culture we know today. And I want this to go on record that you are not normal. by any standard. Yeah, you exactly. That's a lot deeper of a conversation, but you are so not normal. You're an individual that I literally look forward to every conversation we have because I always leave them smarter, more enlightened than before, and you are truly a vessel of purpose that God is using to do His work, literally. And so, with all that being said, I would love to know from you, though, what are the things, or what do you think are the seeds that you watered to evolve in the way that you have?
Mm. I think the seeds that I've watered is making a decision very, very, very long ago that I was going to be intentionally and purposefully kind in every single interaction I had with people. That I was going to treat people fairly regardless of their station in life, whether you're a janitor or you're the CEO of a company. I see you as a human and I see you worthy of respect. I see you worthy of my time. Um, this has been a hard choice, to be honest with you. People
Mhm.
tend to be skeptical of kindness these days, which is heartbreaking and
Yep.
sad. Uh, but I just believe that some of us still have to remain, bearers of the light. We have to be lighthouses instead of spotlights. A lot of people's kindness is intended to be a spotlight, meaning I did this for you, now you owe me something. Versus a lighthouse, which is a guiding principle. Like I'm a lighthouse because that's a guiding principle of my life. I really want to receive a crown that shall not perish. I'm not running a race that is typical or common because I don't want to be a common man. I don't believe God has chosen me to be a common man. And I have to reconcile with the fact that not everybody understands that. And some people look at me like, this dude is always joyful and kind. Because I feel like if I can be a person that makes someone, even a perfect stranger, at least have an interaction that's pleasant throughout their day, and less is the likelihood that they give up. Because I'm always looking at people and wondering, what are they truly carrying? Because I know how much I carry, and I know how much I don't have an outlet to share what I carry. And so instead of me pouring pain into the world, which I think is the way of the villain or the reject, I've decided to become a person that pours joy into the world, which is the way of the rebel. I rebel against the modern structures of masculinity and identity because my blackness is an approximation to the trauma that I've experienced. And I think that's something that you understand growing up in the hood, especially me being, mixed, constantly having to explain the depths of my blackness by how much trauma I see or how much trauma I endured. Like I saw my friend get shot. I grew up on the South Side, and then you just check this list of, oh, okay, this dude is a real one. Why is trauma the indicator of our realness? That's not my reality. That should not be the thing that I celebrate. So I think that's the seed that I planted in myself, that I want to rebel against the structures of the world that constantly tell me that all I ever have is hurt and pain, that my existence is all intended to just fight against stereotypes and adversity. I rebel against that. And so the way to counter back, because when people get it confused, right, they say the opposite of love is hate. No, the opposite of love is indifference. I refuse to be indifferent when I see things that are wrong in the world. I refuse to be indifferent when I see people who are users and people who extract value from our culture but don't put that back in. There's a lot of cultural or ideological fracking. If you understand fracking, what that means in terms of natural resources, our divinity and our creativity is a natural resource. It's something that is, is finite and it is limited based on the amount of energy that we conserve to pour into the world. And so when you're around these energy drainers and people that are creative frackers, people like me have to counterbalance that. And we're the ones who typically get a target put on us because they'll say things like, oh, his kindness has an angle. I try to explain to people who are limited in their comprehension of geometry, I'm a circle, not an angle. I have no corners. I'm a circle, not a square. I have no angles.
Right.
And the reason why is because I believe in a law of reciprocity. What you put into the world is what you get back. So I planted good seed because I want a good harvest. And that was given to me by watching my parents and my grandparents and my elders, despite what they were going through in Chicago. I had a lot of folks who were civil rights activists and pastors and street evangelists and street soldiers, but they still had joy in their heart and love. Despite the things they did, they had love. And so that gave me understanding. Like you could be a warrior in the world and you could be peaceful at home. You could have an iron fist and lead with conviction, or you could have a velvet glove and you can love and you can serve. I've seen both. So that reality is true for me and my journey. It may not be true for everyone, but I believe like that's what I'm here to do, man, is to show what it looks like, even when someone has wronged you, to still show love back in return.
That's right. That's right. And I hope within that you show the transparency of even an individual like yourself that is such a light. You still need to be poured into and reminded on occasions of who and what you are, right? I think that's another thing that we lose in thinking that, you know, individuals need to do this all on their own, right? You need to have this burden all on your own shoulder, and that's not the case. And I just hope one of the things that I add for you in your life is this notion of what I call a reminder. I want to be a reminder to you of who and what you are. And that's why in every conversation, I'm constantly telling you, you are not normal. You're not meant to be normal. You're meant to be all the amazing things that you've already shared. And so I just hope that you also share that part and become a reflection of that in terms of, you know, when you talk about this warrior and all the things that you are, another part of that is an individual who needs to be poured into and reminded of how amazing they are and that you're not normal. So there's so many things that you've touched, and we're going to start on the base level with, you know, footwear. Let's start with the footwear game, right? And footwear, when you talk about cultures, obviously it played a significant role in shaping culture, the culture or whatever culture you want to talk about. Footwear is a significant part. I mean, with all the products you've had a part in creating, like the development of your own brand and Super Heroic and companies you've worked for over the years, was there a particular moment where you realized how big and instrumental this footwear culture was to the shaping of overall culture in life? I call it the intersection.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I honestly, man, it happened very early for me, um, because I realized, you know, growing up and feeling other, you know, being neurodivergent. And for those who don't know what neurodivergent is, it's the person who is not neurotypical, meaning I'm on the spectrum. And I'm not ashamed of it, but I also know that in our culture, specifically in Black culture, when you're transparent with your, you know, shortcomings, it becomes a target easily. You know, people trying to, oh, you something. And so knowing what it feels like to be other or different, I quickly started to find that I'm not going to have a group of people that support me that always look like me. I have to find people that have a shared common interest. And that shared common interest is comic books and shoes and BMX and anime and manga. All the sound wasn't cool when I was a kid. And I fell in love with those things because each story was about a person becoming what they call their exemplar self through augmentation, wearing technology or putting on a Gundam mobile suit or wearing this motorless jacket. And it was always how the relationship between people and objects transformed them into superhuman. And that's what shoes were for me. And so, you know, I knew coming out of hip hop culture, BMX culture, geek nerd culture, that these artifacts that were a subcategory of, you know, commerce and trade, which is performance product, would eventually become its own zeitgeist, its own movement, because those people who were at the comic book shop and at the sneaker store in the night and geeking out about this stuff will become the adults who would have disposable income that would then want to come back to those and share that memory with their loved ones. So I kind of saw it, which is why I positioned myself very early to be part of the contributing team that made these things, because I wanted to help shape the conversation and get people to realize that if you go anywhere in the world and you say, I like your shoes, you can make a friend. That was it for me, man. I just wanted to make friends and I wanted to have shared common interests. Because if I'm 9 years old and I'm talking about, oh, I read Homer last night, Homer Simpson, no, like Homer, the Greeks, like, never mind. And my friends look at me like, what are you talking about, bro? They're like, oh, fine. Just start about niggas, you know, because I would spend so much time with my dad. When he was done with the military, he went to college at Chicago State on the GI Bill. So I spent a lot of my formative years with him in a college classroom, dissecting and digesting very complicated topics in engineering and industrial manufacturing and, you know, economics and mathematics. And so it was normal for me to have an advanced thought processes, but that was abnormal for my neighborhood. So shoes became my thing, man. Toys became my thing. And I'm so grateful now because I've lived a very joyful life meeting people that unexpectedly would have never even liked me, but we both agreed that the shoe is dope, you know?
Right.
So that's the thing for me, man. I saw it as an intersection point very, very long ago, and I'm glad to see the world is valuing it as such.
Yeah. Do you think, who do you think, or what do you think has had kind of the largest impact on shaping footwear culture to date?
Honestly,
Absolutely. That's the only way we roll.
yeah, I think it's the brothers who went upstate in the 80s, man. I think the D-Boys had the biggest impact because the D-Boys were the first expression of entrepreneurship and the ability to brand yourself and dress a certain way and express yourself through fashion. If people don't know what D-Boys mean, and I'm not going to tell you, you just got to Google it. And that's on y'all. But not to say that these people are villains, because a lot of them made choices out of desperation. It wasn't like they grew up and said, this is what I want to be. A lot of them are exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally smart, exceptionally strategic. And it just was applied in a way that was nefarious because they were encouraged to do that, you know, whether you believe it was through governmental provocation or just, you know, quote unquote greed, whatever the catalyst was. The end result was a generation of people who would tell young men like me, like, hey, little shorty, don't stick around here. This ain't for you.
That's right.
Hey, little homie, you smart. Hey, leave,
Right.
bro.
You don't belong here.
Hey, little boy, hey, you don't belong here, dude. Let me get you. You want this? I'll give it to you. But you don't belong here, dude. My cousin Tracy, rest in peace, man, 17 years old, was one of the biggest D-boys on the west side of Chicago, set me down at 8 years old and showed me the effect of heroin. Really gave my brother a task force jacket, gave me money and said, don't you ever mess with this. Don't you ever live in the street. So to watch your own flesh and blood, who's getting money, living that life, show you the effects of what it did to him, and then tell you, like, you're smart, this ain't your path, but they had all this fly stuff and told me you got to get it another way, but it's possible to get it. Man, I think they made the biggest impact because this was pre-social media and these dudes had, I mean, imagine having real clout, being real fly, pre-social media, not algorithmically. I mean, like, you was in a room, people knew you were there.
That's right. That's
You know what I'm
right.
saying? That's who I think made the sneaker game, you know, this I don't even know this phenomenon, man, because they were our heroes. The block was the runway, and they brought performance product and high fashion to us. And also, conversely, our storyteller, Spike Lee. People sleep on Spike Lee. When that Air Jordan scene from Do the Right Thing, we scuffed his spores. Like, that was the first time we saw the shoe presented as a precious asset, right? It was an asset class at that moment. It became an object that you protect, not an object that you just covet, but an object that needed to stay pristine in order to maintain value over time. That's an asset. So between Spike Lee and between the D-Boys, I think they put the understanding of the value of sneakers into culture in a way that allowed us to see ourselves in the object. Separate from the reason why they were created, we saw our essence once we put it on. It became a uniform that we were allowed to wear openly in public that was almost like a silent signal to other people that you came from a certain background, you had a certain style. And then the suburban kids who picked up on it, they also felt that energy and they wanted to replicate that. And then over time, it just became its own subculture. But it did start with the D-Boys and the storytellers, man, to be honest with you. Wasn't the athletes, because most of them didn't come back to the neighborhoods.
Agree. And the way you articulated that in terms of the runway was in the neighborhood, right? And the freshness that you saw was right in your own neighborhood. And these were the influencers, for lack of a better term, that we now coin. These were the real, like, that is the core of influencers, right? They were the ones that everybody looked up to. Everybody saw as the freshest and wanted to be like. And I think that was the birth of the notion of this culture that we are all living in today, and the influence of how that comes about. So with that, is there a white space that you see for growth and advancement within this culture as we know it today?
Yeah. Tremendous white spaces, man. I won't say what they are because I'm also a capitalist and an entrepreneur, so I want to take advantage of it. Get away free. So if you want to get in touch with me, reach out to Aston and I can consult with you. So anybody watching this that want to know, please hit me up. I'll give you my day rate. I'm expensive, but I got to make sure I charge for my game. Yeah, there's tremendous white spaces. And I can explain to you why they're white spaces. I won't tell you why they're there, though, or
Right.
what they are. The reason why is because of that exact word that you just mentioned, influence.
Mm.
Influence has been conflated with power in today's world, right? And influence today is just a more sexier way of saying peer pressure because it's predatory on people's insecurity. The influencer model that we leverage is I'm going to show you a life that you can't live and you feel bad about it. Therefore, the only way you can access this is if you look at what I do and try to support it. And I'm going to convince you based on your insecurities. That's not power. That's predatory, algorithmically scaled subjugation of people through their own brokenness. Influence, in a way that we described it in the 80s, was the power to convince people that anything was possible. That's different. I grew up seeing people do things that were influential and showed me that I myself could achieve that. Influence in today's world is no, you can't. So buy your way to feeling how I pretend to feel on Instagram. It's about predatory behaviors scaled algorithmically that subjugates us to being consumers. Influential people, when you have true power, and you're able to get people to think for themselves, they become catalysts for their sovereignty. So the white space in this market is we're going to have two choices, right? You're either a creator or you're a consumer. I think that the white space is definitely going to be in the people who are able to truly create. And I'm not talking about the creator economy and content. I'm talking about creation of physical objects and experiences, like people who can create from an authentic place and build their own micro economy around them. Like we've seen it happen somewhat transitioning from street art to pop art to commercial art. Now we're going into industrial art. And people like me who are industrial designers who are stuck under NDAs and not compete to corporations, when we are able to be sovereign and free and build our own microeconomy where we can design, develop, produce, sell, distribute, account everything vertically integrated into how we see the world, then you got to start to see a complete revolutionary step in the ability for people to truly, get access to product based on interest, not just on the resale value. Like, I'm interested in this. I love it. I've made it. Now these 100 people want to spend money with me. I'm going to super serve them. Nipsey Hussle tested this model, rest in peace to Nip, when he sold the $1,000 album, right? And people were mad at him, and they're like, why you sell, and people were like, this is crazy. He got this album, I think it was worth $1,000 and he only had a limited amount and sold out. Jay-Z bought a bunch of copies of it. Like, he is showing a vertically integrated model because he produced everything he had. Now, the reason this is important is because the democratization of tools and production has now been shifted to third-party actors that aren't beholden to large brands who steal all their resources, because these brands aren't better than one another. They're just more resource. But when you peel back a layer of the people running the company and their talent level, a lot of them are great strategists and politicians and, internally within the structure, but a lot of the most talented people leave and go the agency route because they're like, I want to be free to create and think across multiple verticals. Nothing wrong with that. That's the model of corporate America, and it works. There's a new class of people who are rejecting that model and saying, I want to be able to be in the center of my narrative. I'm the protagonist, and all of these vectors coming from this center point, like Hub and Spoke, are my interests. Which interests can I monetize, and how many people can I find that are also interested in that? And I'm just going to focus on that. Case in point, music. If I told you who my favorite artist was, and you tell me who your favorite artist is, and then we look at who the number one artist in America is, guarantee those three answers are different.
Correct.
Because it's contextual relevance, right?
Yep.
There's no longer one standard of the greatest artist. Growing up, we knew the greatest group for us in R&B was New Edition. And then Boyz II Men was the greatest group. We had one, and that was the greatest athlete, Michael Jordan. It was not a lot of context because we all saw the same thing at the same time. Now we're not all seeing the same thing. And it's going to happen in footwear and in fashion. You won't see these behemoth dominant brands. As much as they're trying to consolidate through acquisition, you're going to see a lot of people with smaller brands living a very good life because they're serving their community, because that's the person I can transact with, and that's the person that's authentic. So I'm not going to talk about how that's the massive white space and how to monopolize it or monetize it, but just know that there is one. And if you're a person who has ideas, because this conversation is happening now with artificial intelligence and art, I'm going to explain something to you. Anybody that's salty about AI and machine learning, okay, do two things for me. Clear out every single one of your Netflix queue shows and movies, because they're probably a remake of something else. Please put away all the retro shoes you're wearing, because those shoes were done 30, 40 years ago. Don't listen to nothing on the radio, because it's probably a remix. Or it has a sample from a song that was made before. So AI machine learning is a medium. And if you've already mastered the craft and know how to do it without technology, it just enhances what you make next. So I'm excited to see what brands, what products, what experiences people put on with the augmentation of artificial intelligence and machine learning to help iterate and ideate quicker. And I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. I know it was a lot to that question,
No, no, well,
but it's a brand new world.
yeah, the AI, thought that you mentioned there, I want to get a little bit more insight on because I'm not well versed in that space. So when you make the
Yeah.
correlation to, retros or samples, it help me understand that a little bit clearer.
Yeah. So the argument in the art space, in the tech space is if I was to go, like these profile pictures people put up, right, with AI and they're able to change how they look,
Yes.
the AI model references another art style from another artist. And people are like, well, don't claim you drew that when you know that the AI referenced that real artist. I'm like, cool, let's do this thing then. Let's walk it all the way out. Don't give that producer a Grammy because they sampled that soul song from the 60s because they didn't play the chord structure. They don't know music theory. You know what I'm saying? They did this in Pro Tools or Fruity Loops. So we can't have it both ways. We can't both be mad and accepting of things that are new ways of creating. And if you've mastered your craft and you know how to do this by hand, this is just a medium to express yourself quicker. If you have no creative talent, the way it's been defined in society, and you use these tools and it's a way to express yourself, that's dope. Because we all start off loving to draw and to make. I don't know no 4-year-old kid, if you gave them some crayons and a piece of paper, that they wouldn't pick it up and start scribbling. It's stripped from us once we get in alignment with the modern education system because our structure is set up to extract value from creative people, not to give people the ability to understand that creativity is a natural response to the world around you that is completely innate to us in childhood, that over time we're told we're not because we can't visually create. We can't draw. Everybody thinks creativity is drawing. No, creativity is the outward expression of an internal dialogue you have with the Most High, which we call imagination. When you have that vision in your mind and you're trained enough to put that into the world on paper or on body or in a film, then you've taken action from imagination to creativity. The act of transferring something to your mind into the real world is creatio ex nihilo. That's what they call it in Latin and in antiquity. Create from nothing. That's a very beautiful thing when you think about divinity, because that's what the Most High did from us. It was He created from nothing. So there has to be something that controls the ability to create from nothing. Because if you can create from nothing, you'll never lack. If you can create from nothing, you'll never go without. If you create from nothing, you don't have to stay put and feel sorry for your environment or your upbringing or where you've come from, because you can create where you want to be. So there's a vested interest in controlling how and why and when we create, because it limits us to see ourselves as equal and childlike and joyful and expressive. And I love the fact that people who've told me I can't draw, put up dope pictures on Instagram showing their AI ML imagery, because I'm like, for the first time, you're able to play again. Like, nobody gets salty when you get a coloring book with the line art already drawn for you. I feel like it's my art. If I colored in somebody else's line art, that's still my expression of their art. So I'm hyped, man. I'm hyped that people can express themselves, because if we did that more freely, we wouldn't have all this pent up anger. You know?
Yeah. So now you made it very clear to me, and now I get the analogy 1000%. And I think the word that punches through for me is expression. You kept saying that, and all of these things that you mentioned as examples and correlating back to AI, it's forms of expression, which taps into that creative side, which taps into the uniqueness, the authenticity of an individual to be able to express. All of it is an expression. And, I even look at Black culture in general has been built on expression. And we also know that, Black culture has definitely been quite often borrowed, appropriated, or used to inspire like other cultures and industries. To talk about the importance that you see around Black ownership and recognition of what it is that the Black community has brought to not only this country, but really the world.
Man, yeah, I think the word ownership is exceptionally complicated in our community, because at one point we were viewed, some of us, because not all of us came here through chattel slavery, some of us were already here Pre-slavery, it's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of historical fact, biological fact, linguistic fact that we were here on this continent of North, Central, and South America for an exceptional long time. Pre-slavery, pre-Columbian, oration of what this world looks like, meaning Christopher Columbus and his backward style of living. The thing about us, Christopher Columbus was, that man, people really need to understand history a little bit more and realize these guys are not heroes. They were literally hired hands. It was like somebody with the task rabbit and found the dirtiest person they could find to do the dirtiest task. No disrespect to task rabbit. I love the service. I use it. Sorry for bringing you into it. But the thing about it is ownership is complicated because it's a commerce term, and we were treated as an asset on someone's balance sheet. Like half of the financial institutions in America underwrote slavery. Like they provided insurance and capital, and specifically insurance to protect us because we were certain people's assets, which is hecka weird when you know the financial implications of ownership. Now, what we do own, but we can't. This is the truth of it. We control our creativity, but we don't own the outward expression of it. We control through what we all collectively understand and accept, meaning this is a dope way, to show up in the world. This person put on for the culture. This person speaking facts. We have all these ways to indicate, we collectively agree as a culture of people. Because remember, North American Black people, we don't have a nation. We don't, we're not, they understand that status there. We are a culture of people that operate as a nation within the United States. We all validate certain things. Now, the trick to validating it is we never protect it because we keep it as a cultural trust fund. Everything for us is through trust. We trust that it's within our culture, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we move. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell people the codes. It's all just this implicit understanding that certain things we don't speak on outside of our culture. There's a trust factor here. The people who don't come from our culture, they operate with a trust mentality, meaning legal structure, where they control everything, but they own nothing. They put everything into something held in a trust in perpetuity. They extract value from it through distributions, and which we call royalties and intellectual property rights and patents and trademarks. And they control the value of something that they do not actually own. We do it colloquially with language. They do it through language called legalese and contracts. So we just can't keep pointing fingers at folks anymore about why stuff is being taken from us. Why don't we collectively pool if we all gonna hashtag something on Twitter, put up the 2,500 to protect it with the USCPO. Put up the 1,500 to trademark that catchphrase for the homie who come up with something clever now it's taken off on TikTok, and then transfer rights to that person and say, now once you monetize this, I want to get a royalty. Like, why don't we do that? I've done it. I've bought websites for people and sent them to the website and say, yo, here's your URL, bro. I bought it for you so you can protect that in the future. People have done that for me, perfect strangers. Hey, bro, I heard you say this thing. I think you need to protect it. I bought this website for you. Hold on to that. That's my gift to you, black man. So take the second step. We don't need accreditation. We need provenance. Provenance and accreditation are two totally different things. We get accredited for creating trends, but we do not get the provenance to say we are the originator, which means that we are included in the bedrock of that trend, and we also extract value from that trend. But we'll get that came from such and such said it first. Soulja Boy did it first. Soulja Boy needs to trademark that phrase. Soulja Boy did it first. He needs to trademark that. Somebody in his team to trademark that, like on everything, because that's the game we're playing is to make sure our stuff is protected and then put it into a trust structure legally, not just trust like my brother's not going to do something to me, because we've done that too long. And now if we're truly going to break free economically, we have to start protecting our ideas, and then also being comfortable giving people credit for their ideas. If you didn't come up with it and you took it, man, tell them, pay them for their time, give them insight. Like I've just had some person do some work for me, and this person, she would have done it on a string. I hit her off with, here's the money and here's the actual invoice. So that way, you know that you are being valued for
value. Just value what
you did for me. Yeah. Not everybody operates like that, bro. Let me pick your brain. Let me hit you up. Boom, go off, make money off of. And it's like, well, can you at least acknowledge that I did it? At least something? Nah, because it's a zero-sum game for us and how we've been pitted against each other. And I just don't. Tired of it, man. We got enough. We don't be taking from each other. So I think if we start to understand how to build our structures, how to protect things, and how to take the time to acknowledge when we've taken from others and pour value back into them, then we can live a peaceful life. You know, we can live a peaceful life. At least that's my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, and the way you broke down the trust component, I think it is very impactful, and starting with very small steps of like you said, gestures of buying a URL or saying that somebody should, you need to copyright that, or helping them with the process as a complete stranger, right? To build that equity, I think are small but very yet impactful steps, but it takes a mind shift, right? Because like I didn't even think of those things until I hear you speak to it. But as you speak to it, I can see how quickly and easily it gets us from where we're currently operating into the place that you are recommending, the space that we can go into. And, it's wild that you're saying this now, because you've also said that we're in this season of reset. And I play that over and over in my head because, I'm seeing it on my personal and professional life. But do you think there's a needed, and it sounds like I kind of know the answer, is there a needed reset within the cultures we're talking about? And what do you think that reset or change should look like?
Yeah, man. I think I would evolve my remarks from reset to evolution, right? And so reset, you start back at the beginning again. It's like in a video game. You go right back to the beginning, play the level again without any prior knowledge of where you started. That's how it works when we reset. I think we need to get into the mindset of the evolutionary step, right? Like we repeat the mistakes of our ancestors because we don't dissect and examine them enough objectively with emotional neutrality, because we constantly are having to be, we have to constantly suppress how we feel. We got to make decisions about when we tell people we sad, when we tell people we going through stuff, because we think, this is just me and my lived experience as a Black man. If I share everything and all of a sudden I got to think, okay, how can I be leveraged and how can this and this and that? It's like, man, bro, I ain't got time for that. So the evolutionary step for me is making sure that when we talk about breaking the cycle, because that's a big phrase in the Black community, break the cycle. What exactly is the cycle of pattern of behavior you're breaking? Because it isn't poverty. Poverty is an end result of something. It isn't addiction. It isn't low self, worth. It isn't self-loathingness. It isn't anger and drunkenness and promiscuity, or violence. That's the symptom of a greater sickness within your family, intergenerationally. And that sickness isn't a physiological one. It's a spiritual one. What is it within your spirit that's been passed on through epigenetics? If you study how trauma is encoded in our DNA, we all are born with things happening to us beyond our consent. It's in our DNA. But you can't restructure yourself at a cellular level. You can restructure and cleanse, but you have to do the self-examination and the introspection, because we give ourselves enough hall passes. That's just how he and she is. No, that's not. That's not how they are. That's how they've accepted themselves to be in the context that they've grown up in. I've had to break free from a lot of the things that I did not, receive without my consent at birth. But you know what I'm saying? And that's how I break the cycle. Like, well, how do I want to handle certain situations? How do I want to respond to certain things? How do I want to navigate? Not just accepting that this is how we do things, but like, no, I want a new deviation from the timeline my family has been on. I feel grateful, extremely grateful for everything my family has been through and endured. But I also feel blessed that I can branch off and start a new timeline, because that's how life should be. Look at a tree, right? Come from the ground and we grow, but each branch has its own direction.
Absolutely.
But in our community, we think it's like keep growing the trunk. No, the trunk is your family and their roots, and and each branch is the decisions we've made. And you break the cycle by deciding to make a different decision and continuing on that branch, knowing that you're not going to see the end of how all the leaves, but you just are starting a new direction on that timeline. And then your children can branch out, and then their children can branch out. And now you have all these different things that are hard coded into your family's rootedness in what they were sent here to do. And that revelation came to me when I started to think about these words in the desert and the Negev of Israel, under the same stars that the first humans that walked out of Northeast Africa looked at. I realized, like, I'm staring at the same exact sky that the first people stared at, wondering what was beyond where they were, not realizing that all these millennia later, this person will be standing right here asking and pondering the same question: what lies beyond the stars? Where am I going in my life? Will I be safe? So that basic understanding of human need gave me this mindset that I do not have to consent to the reality I'm told to consent to, because I was born in a certain way and born in a certain era and born to a certain family and born in a certain avatar, certain skin. Like, I can add a new deviation from this timeline that allows my family to bear new fruit. I don't want to keep trying to grow a dead branch, because that's not my journey. There's certain behaviors that I don't want to scale, that I don't want my ancestors and my future ancestors, my progeny, to have 400 years from now. I want them to have a very disciplined, different mindset than, what I saw. And not to say, like I said, my family is phenomenal. I love my family. But I also know that I'm a tall dude that used to have a short temper, because that's what I thought we used to have to be. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't take no stuff. And as a kid, as I got older and matured into a man, I'm like, the real internal battle in here, that's when you wage war. You have to be at peace within yourself. And that's what I want to engender within my children, is being at peace within yourself, because the world constantly wants you at war.
That's right.
With the world around you. So you have to be at peace within yourself. And that, to me, I think, is the evolutionary step that I've taken to create a new branch that bears new fruit.
Yeah, and that peace component is huge, and you're being cognizant of your peace and being unapologetic of it being disrupted. You talk about something that's difficult, right? You talk about it's hard work, but it's the best work to do, because what you don't want to do is allow your peace to be dictated by someone or something else, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I feel like that's one of the most demoralizing, one of the saddest things that you can ever do, is give access to disrupting your peace at a level to where someone else can or something can control it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it leads into another question I wanted to ask you. We all know the saying about, hurt people, right? And that's another reason why your peace can be tampered with by others, because sometimes they don't have the peace, right? But you've actually taken that saying further. I think you said hurt leaders, hurt organizations and cultures, right? And what are some of the byproducts and indicators of that you see?
Oh, man. Toxic productivity. I think toxic productivity is one of them. That hurt leaders have projected onto because this is a function of psychology, it's called projection. So when you compound projection with moral decoupling, which is a phenomenon that separates or bifurcates a person's actions from their outcomes, meaning this powerful person has money, I'm not going to judge them the same way I would judge a person who did an equal act with equal harm, because, give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a moral decoupling here. How you got there is not necessarily going to be held against you once you get there. And this is played out consistently with power dynamics in the organizational structure. So when you take moral decoupling and projection of hurt onto others, I want you to feel how I felt, because I want to see that I've actually put my inner turmoil outwardly onto you as an employee, as a contractor, as a business partner. It's because those behaviors are rewarded and incentivized. And so that's where we've gotten, is projection and vitriolic speech has become incentivized. And so now it creates greater conditions for moral decoupling to only scale greatly, because now people are saying, oh, I don't have to worry about people not spending money with me just because I did this thing. Well, let me do that thing. Because it's not what people see. The thing that people are missing about this moment And sorry to drop a bunch of scientific stuff. I know, in our personal
Don't
conversation.
apologize. I told you, you're not normal. Please don't apologize, bro. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Please.
You know, like we're living in malignant, which is a very specific psychological tactic, to normalize these really bombastic behaviors that are harmful and detrimental to society. Because I told you, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The more this happens, we become indifferent. And the more indifferent we become, we stop having that reaction that is natural to us, which is, a self-preservation instinct, like fight or flight. We're hardwired to self-preserve. The more we don't react to things that we know are abnormal, the easier it is for us to not care anymore and become indifferent. And when we stop caring, we miss the whole point of life, was to give and receive love. That's it. So when you get into these organizations and you leave to pursue another job and they tell you, oh, you're replaceable. Yes, that title is replaceable. The person isn't. Their unique contributions is not replaceable. This is an individual person that has never and will never ever exist in that context at that time with that specific set of skills and thoughts and ideas. It is unique and it's beautiful and it's valuable when it's put in the right context. If you ask me, hey, I need to fix my bike, I need a wrench, and I give you a screwdriver, I've just used that tool in the wrong context, so it has no effectiveness. So of course you devalue the screwdriver. It can't solve the problem that you needed to solve. You needed a wrench. It's the same way at organizations. When you have a leader that doesn't have the right tools to fix this org or to do this job, of course they're not going to complete the task. So what do they need to do? They need to challenge that it's the problem that they should be solving. So then they deviate away from the fact that they don't have the tools onto the problem itself and say, oh, that's the wrong problem. It's like, no, dude, you're the wrong tool. Put in the right context, you could have been a better leader. But you're a screwdriver trying to solve the problem of a wrench. And when the person in your team is a wrench that can solve the problem and they're younger, they look different than you, you project onto them because they can solve the problem. You can't get the credit. But a good leader knows they're a screwdriver. They surround themselves with wrenches,
Boom,
and scissors and hammers. And they say, you know what? At the right time, I know the right tool to pull out, and I'm going to make sure the conditions are right so that that tool can be leveraged effectively so we don't wear it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the positive productivity. That's the projection. So it starts with analyzing and asking the right questions and saying, are we solving the right problem? And do these people have the right tools? And if they don't, what do we need to do to ensure that they either develop the tools or we now complement that with adding to our team or trading people within the team? But each individual person in the right context will be valued to the fullest extent of the unique problems that they can solve with the tool sets that they've been given. And I believe that as a leader because I've seen it myself, good and bad.
Empowerment. It's empowerment and enabling and supporting the toolbox that you have access to. But I mean, you said it, a lot of it comes from insecurities of leaders who feel like since they can't do it or they have a team that's supposed to be doing it, if they don't have their finger on it or telling this team how to do it or what to do, then they're not doing their job. Well, it's the complete opposite. You need to be enabling and empowering those who do have the job. That's why you bring this diverse team to it. I know it's such a no-brainer, but it really isn't, which is weird.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But again, I guess
it takes humility, man.
Yes, takes a lot of humility. And so, you have a firm grounding in your spiritual walk that I see showing up across all the things that you do, and I'm so grateful. Why is it so critical to you to keep him first in all things?
Yeah, because I'm only performing for an audience of one. That's it. Like, I believe firmly in the fact that the moment I take credit for the things, he's different between taking credit and taking responsibility. I'll take responsibility for every situation in my life where it didn't work out. But I can't take credit for the things that I was born with that have uniquely gifted me. Like, I didn't say God picked me to be neurodivergent.
That's right.
I didn't. I don't wish that on nobody, man. Like, I can't shut my brain off like an average person. I wish I could. I wish I could not have to worry about tapping my fingers and trying to, like I told you, like this chatter, like act normal. I wish I didn't have to do that, but it's how I am, and I can't take credit for that gift and that blessing. I take responsibility for what I do with it. So that's why I said, if I know that I'm performing for an audience of one, like John Coltrane, when he wrote "A Love Supreme," if you read the liner notes, when he talks about the pursuit of every good endeavor, and how he wrote that album as a thank you letter to God. It had nothing to do with us. We just were fortunate to listen to it, but that was a love letter to God for saving John Coltrane from addiction, from hurt. Miles Davis played, like, he was going through a lot when he wrote that. And so when you realize that he played that album earnestly for an audience, I was like, yo, that's how I want to live my life. I want my life to be a mixture of linguistically Illmatic and sonically A Love Supreme. That's the combination of how I see myself. Like, I speak like Nas writes, and I move with the rhythm like John Coltrane, how he played the sax. And if I can do that for just God alone and not worry about getting applause from an audience that genuinely can't even applaud themselves, then I can live a righteous life. I could be a person that, you know, has put something into the world that's helped people, even people I may never meet, even people I can't benefit from. I still feel like they're deserving of a good life. I still feel like they're deserving of love and inspiration. So yeah, I do it for him because, bro, I'm grateful. All the stuff that could have happened to me that didn't, all the stuff that did happen to me, it all gave me this perspective. It all gave me, you know, this life that I lived, good and bad. I'm grateful. So when you operate from a place of gratitude, it gets real easy to understand the difference between taking credit and taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be very cautious with that, you know, because I am responsible for every single situation that I don't like in my life. I can't point the finger at nobody, but I can take credit for the gifts and talents I've been given. I can take responsibility for what I've done with them. And that's the difference and why I keep my faith first.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, people would always say, man, look at all the things you've done. Look at all the things you've done. You've been here, you've been there, you've worked with this person, worked with that person. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I wasn't smart enough to make any of that happen. I wasn't smart enough to make any. This was the journey that God chose, that he's using me to have, to be able to share, to be able to influence and do his work and be a reflection of him in the best way possible that I can, right? As a human. But I always say, we're not that smart. But we're not that good. We're vessels. We're vessels that he's just working through. But, you know, you've shown that you can do so much across so many different fields, whether it's design, leadership, public speaking. And in your spiritual journey, you need to know, I think it's interesting, you need to know the difference between what you can do and what you're called to do, right? Do you feel like you're locked into your calling and your purpose?
I do. I feel I am. You know, like my grandmother was like, "Yo, you're gonna be a pastor, you're gonna be a minister, but you're not gonna be in a church. You're gonna be in a world." She said it to me since I was a child. My mother did say that to me since I was a child. All the way. I do. I feel blessed, man, that I'm the person people call, influential people call when they feel down, and they know I'm not gonna repeat what they tell me. I'm just gonna love on them and be kind to them. I feel grateful that even though some people don't appreciate it, some people question it, all I can do is pray for those people. I mean, they never actually hear real love in their life. They don't know what it feels like. They ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yep.
So if you can't appreciate real love when it's in front of them, it's not my burden. But for those who do appreciate it, man, I'm so grateful. And if they listen to this, thank you for trusting me with your vulnerability. Because I feel like that's my ministry. You know, it's to be the person that tells you, you know, to give you that gentle rebuke, you know, as a friend, to help you hold yourself accountable, but also to just sit with you, man, just to sit with people and just say, it's okay to feel. Because we know too much, but we feel too little. And that's the problem with cleverness. We're not intelligent. We're clever people. We've lost intelligence long ago because we've now given intelligence this term and modified it by the phrase artificial. So we even don't value intelligence enough to break it down between intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom. We just lump it all into one category. So which is why I believe we're clever, which makes you unkind. Because cleverness is the cousin of being cunning. And so I don't want to be clever and cunning. I want to be empathic and loving. And so I feel like that's my calling. I do it through art. I do it through design. I do it through public speaking. I do it through private conversations. I do it through the way I love my children and my wife and the way I serve my community. And I feel like it. I feel like this is me being deployed by God for a mission instead of employed by man for a profession. The difference between a vocation and a profession. You know, my vocation is the ministry of design and creativity. My profession is an industrial designer. My deployment and purpose is to use my gifts and talents to make life a little bit more easy and beautiful for others. And I fundamentally believe that that is what I'm deployed to do at this time, whatever that looks like, whether it's for one person or 1 billion people. The work that I've done and the things I will continue to do, I see it as meaningful, you know. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen these things in my mind and tried to actualize against them if they weren't really meaningful, you know. So that's really it, man.
Well, look, you've dropped a great deal of, or planted, I should say, a great deal of seeds in this convo, and I always like to end with, you know, what are the 3 seeds you want to leave with the stewards of culture moving forward? And if there are 3 that punch through to the top for you, what would those be?
The first one is that kindness is not weird. Stop celebrating cold-hearted people and making that seem like that's how you got to be cool. It's not cool to be mean. It's not cool to be unkind. It's not cool not to feel. That's not human. Like, kindness isn't a weakness, man. It shouldn't be looked at and manipulated and tried to leverage for nefarious gain. We got to protect kindness. You got to protect kind people. We're getting rarer and rarer. It's real easy to be a villain. You know, to be a villain means I just don't have to care. To get up every day and still want to be a hero, I got to choose to show kindness even if I get knocked down the day before. You know how hard that is? But me be kind every day. So please stop demonizing kindness as a weakness. It's way stronger to be kind than to be an a-hole. Because I know a bunch of a-holes will put no effort into it. And they know it. But if you put effort into being a kind, disciplined human, man, the second piece, it's okay to be wrong and it's okay to fail. Because nobody you know that's successful has gotten there on their first try. It's a lie. And if they got there on their first try, they probably just playing a role. Or they played themselves, or they sold their soul. Selling your soul is a real thing. It don't happen through some, you know, dude with a pitchfork and a red tail. No, it happens through compromising your morals consistently, lowering your expectations consistently, allow people to transgress against you, even though you had that gut feeling that you shouldn't do something or accept something. Anytime you accept something beyond your intuition and instinct, you've just sold a fraction of your soul. And it's fractional ownership when a person can convince you to do things against your morals. So do not believe that mistakes and failure are deterministic of your entire journey. It's just momentary. It's just momentary. And you got to feel that moment. It's okay to feel sad and down. It's okay. It's real. Just don't let it control what you do next. Just let yourself feel how you feel in a moment. And the third piece is, it's okay to ask for help. Ask for help. Ask for help. Go to a therapist. Talk to a pastor. Go to a shaman. Go to whoever it is you feel from you the answers you need from your answers. Whatever it is you need, get help. Don't look for help at the bottom of a bottle or laying on your back horizontally with the person of the opposite sex, or or lighting something up. That's not help. That's numbing. That's numbing the pain that will go unaddressed, that will eventually plant seeds that you do not want to be planted in your spirit, that are destructive and dark and evil and allows you to give up on love and give up on hope. We can't. Like, that's the whole point. I wish people realize, like, the whole timeline we're on right now, it's not about fame and fortune and power. It's a complete battle between hope, and I even got afraid hope isn't a strategy. Man, hope was the underlying strategy that gave birth to faith. And if we get rid of hope, we have no faith.
Yep.
We have no faith. And I just feel like there's a crisis of faith on our planet. And I'm not talking about religious faith. I'm talking about faith in people. Hope that maybe somebody does the right thing. You look at what's happening in the U.S., man, the Christian community, and now Christianity is looked at as a dog whistle for a certain group of people that are essentially functioning like a terrorist group. So everything is being challenged at this time, man. And it's better. So just ask for help. We all going through something. Don't pretend like you're okay when you're not. Especially black men. Come on, man. I wish the best for all my brothers. Even if you done something to me and you watching this, I forgive you. I wish you the best. I don't want you to suffer. I want you to win. I need you to win. I need every person to win.
Well, listen, I mean, there's no better way to close this conversation out with that sentiment of everybody needing to win, and we all want to win. That's why I think so highly of you, because you're so needed for us to win. You in your pure self are needed for all of us to win. And I'm sorry if this is coming across as, a heavy weight or any pressure. But I tell you on a regular basis, you're not normal. You were never meant to be. And this just, again, reinforces everything that I know. But you, my friend, are so, so needed. And I need you to keep pushing. I need you to keep going. I need you to know that I'm going to continue to be here pushing you forward whenever I see that dip, because you are needed and appreciated. All right? And I love you and
Thank you,
thank
bro.
you for it, bro.
Love you too, big bro. You know what it is.
And thank you for the time.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.